He has already mooted withdrawal from NATO, the renationalisation of the railways and the scrapping of Trident. But perhaps bizarrely, none of Labour leadership contender Jeremy Corbyn's pronouncements so far has prompted quite as much furore as his suggestion that he would be willing to consider women-only carriages after a marked increase in reports of sexual harassment and assaults on public transport. So, is it a welcome precaution or a backward step towards segregation? Joining me now are Holly Baxter, the Deputy Editor of Comment at The Independent and the editor of Agenda magazine, as well as the freelance journalist Victoria Richards. Victoria, you've travelled in a women-only carriage, albeit not in Britain.
Yes.
Why? And where?
I lived in Japan for a couple of years, and I was there when women-only carriages were first introduced. I'd had a couple of experiences on the metro system there, which is, believe it or not, a lot more packed than London Underground, and it's even harder to tell when there's a hand on you or brushing against you who's doing it. So when female-only carriages were introduced, I thought, OK, I'll give it a try, and it was just sort of an overwhelmingly pleasant experience. It was quieter, it was...
Smelled better.
Yeah, exactly. It was more friendly, it was calmer, and just a much sort of greater sense of personal safety.
And yet, obviously, it kind of puts the burden upon the woman to address the bad behaviour that you experienced being perpetrated by the men.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, actually. I think, obviously, we're all united behind wanting to change social attitudes to combat, you know, the kind of perhaps male entitlement or misogyny that leads some men to harass women or to sexually assault women. But we need a practical, short-term solution. So women-only carriages are an option for that. It's a way to empower women to feel that they don't have to change their behaviours, they don't have to become reluctant travellers on public transport, that they can go somewhere and carry out their daily routines unharmed, unharassed.
Holly Baxter, it's true that women already change their behaviours. We all choose a carriage at night time according to where we would feel least at risk. And I discovered today, much to my shock actually, just how many women have experienced these sort of things on British public transport. It goes without saying that if you put all the women that want to be in a separate carriage, they are automatically insulated from the possibility of being touched inappropriately or harassed.
I mean, for the duration of their journey, yes.
Yes.
But I think the idea that would get rid of sexual assault or harassment in society is incredibly naive.
No one's suggesting that. I don't think Jeremy Corbyn, and to be fair to the fella, all he said today is that he wanted to have a conversation about it, not that he wanted to cast it in stone. But it is to address the very specific problem of crimes committed or offences committed on trains, on public transport.
Yeah, and I think you need to think about what sort of feeds into that and how far you can then take it in society. So, for instance, you might have a woman who does get sexually assaulted in a mixed-gender carriage on the tube, and then you think about what the social sort of reaction might be there. And so you could have somebody saying, well, why did you get into a mixed-gender carriage if
so it becomes
you didn't want to be assaulted? I mean,
the equivalent of a short skirt or
exactly.
too much to drink.
When we put the onus on women to protect themselves from harassment, as we did with the Sussex police campaign that said, don't leave your friends behind because you'll leave them open to rape, or the TfL campaign that said, don't get into unlicensed taxis because you'll, again, leave yourself open to rape. When we pursue this line of thought, we end up just reinforcing misogyny in the long term.
So, in a sense, Victoria, you're sort of giving a free pass to the misogynists by saying that, you know, if a woman comes into your path, it's your fault, because, look, there's a path over there she could be walking on that you're not allowed anywhere near.
But those attitudes are precisely the ones that we want to change, right? So, I mean, British Transport Police released figures this month saying that the number of sexual assaults on trains, tubes and overground trains have gone up 25% in the last year.
The number of reports have. And there's been a lot of effort put into getting people to come forward.
So, I mean, yeah, that's the reports. What about the unreported incidents? Everyone you talk to has got a story. You know, do a straw poll of your office or your friends, and, you know, every woman will have something to say, something that's happened to them. But introducing a women-only carriage forces the dialogue into the open. It forces us to talk about it.
But doesn't it do the opposite? Doesn't
I
it mean
don't
we
think
don't
so.
have to talk about it
No, I
anymore
don't
because
think
we've
it
got this
does.
carriage now?
I think it says, it forces people to question, as we're doing now, why would we need such a thing, which puts the subject of male to female sexual harassment on the table, basically. And if it achieves nothing else, even if this never becomes policy, if it's just an idea, just a consultation, as Jeremy Corbyn's suggested, to find out what women actually want, then that's opening the conversation. It can only be a good thing.
Holly Baxter, Victoria Richards, thank you very much indeed. And that is it for tonight.